Good morning, all. If somebody could indicate maybe in the messages if you can hear me.
Well, goes with 9. We've got my smoking glasses, running glasses. That's okay. Go on Saturday. It's so busy this time of the week.
Lovely, thanks, CJ. Now there's a total of 2 other people in the room with me right now. So everybody's running a little late, I think. Now we are trialling the new with the camera, so it's not great lighting in here, so apologies for that. We'll see how we go during the day with that. I might just get underway, ladies, if you're okay for me to get underway. Yes. So the whole 2 of you who are here. Not sure where everybody else is. So let me just bring this up. Sorry, we've got a new venue, so it's just been trying to sort out tech this morning. There's just a fair bit to cover in terms of the compliance update, and I really appreciate everybody online who has been able to attend and has been prompt in getting or being available today, so thank you for that. No, thanks. So let me see if I can share my screen here.
Yeah.
Great. Sorry, just technical difficulties. I'm not very good at this stuff, so please bear with me. And might just change my view. So I'm just trying to make sure that the people on site can see what I'm sharing online. There's always actually the other way around to what we normally have.
Hi, when I found out it was $50, I went, ah. So
Sorry, Rob.
When I did something like classifiers, naughty but sneaky, I went and parked at Officeworks. Just hit over in the corner. But I figure,
okay, so I'm going to do something a little bit different this time in terms of checking in. So if everybody's got their phones, if you could check in for me, sign in.
You're assuming that we know how to.
Yep, all you have to do is scan. Thank you so much. Thank you. If you can scan the QR code and just let me know, particularly online, if you're able to see that. Now I can't see everybody's comments, so I'm just going to have to log in on my phone as well. Okay, so are you able to scan that and check in, please?
Is it so you know where the naughty students are today?
No, we're just trying to. So generally when people are on site, we get them to sign in. Oh, so sorry. I just removed it from everybody. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, John. Okay, so the troops have arrived. And can everybody see the screen? Okay, obviously if you're logging in, you can see the screen, which is great. Kath, am I able to get you to take coffee orders at all, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Oh, you've got it there. Yeah.
Hey, Rob.
It's like 5 or 6 to get one.
Okay, sorry, there's a car parking issue here. Hasn't been the easiest to get to.
Yeah,
I've been walking over 10 minutes.
Sorry?
Yeah.
No,
So, like,
thanks.
twice a day one.
No, I'm good, thanks. I'm presenting. All right, so everybody online is waiting for a presentation. If everybody can scan in. Nick, have you been able to scan in? QR code. I'm trying something new so that I don't have paper flying around everywhere. Sorry, we're just waiting for the strugglers in the room. There's been a couple of car accidents around today as well.
We've got our flags.
Exactly.
I'm doing that good job.
Darren, can I bother you to
So.
on your session? I can't see it on my phone because it's mirroring what I've got on that. Okay, so we might get underway. There is a fair bit to go through today. Sorry, guys. So thank you for everybody. Now I've got somebody checking messages because I can't actually see them as I'm going through. So bear with me if you've sent a message and you've got something that I need to respond to. My apologies. All right, the general advice. So we'll see how that goes in future. So we've got a day full of workshops today. I really don't like how I can.
Is that blurry or?
Yeah, it's blurry. It's blurry. You don't need to change. You don't need to change. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how I can make this.
How have you done it, Caroline? First stop sharing. And then maybe.
Sorry, guys.
If you go back into
Well, hang on. Yeah.
Teams, maybe. And then just share.
For those who are watching on their phone, they can't sign in. I'll still be able to see records that you've attended online.
Just do a screen, I think Caroline's better off. And then
Oops.
he's that opening up there.
All right, we'll try. There we go. Okay, we'll try this. Apologies.
You should be able to change. But now that's got the wrong view. You can change the other way around.
Yeah, but
Go
it's,
up the top displays.
I can't see that on the screen.
On your.
No. No, it's on the screen map. So I don't know if it's up the top.
Have you got extended screens for?
I do at home. My apologies.
Oh,
guys.
wait, yeah, it is extended.
And that's perfect for me. Good time.
There you go.
Okay, let's try this time. Okay, so for late comers, I do have in the room, I've got some QR codes to scan in. Hold on, we need that. Okay, so let's get underway. Apologies online. Thank you so much. If you notice, I think my camera's been following me around the room. Okay. So what we're going to go through today is the QAR tranche 1, what's actually happened and what you need to do now. Some of it is actually now law. Well, tranche 1 is now law, but some of it's now active. We'll go through the compensation scheme of last resort, the audit that ASIC are doing on your financial advisor register. And I want to introduce SAMI, which is a new software that we're starting to use for auditing and AFSL management, and also to talk about the conference and the Coxie Award. Okay, so this one's a busy screen. We all know the history, but just a really quick refresher. The final report was actually passed down in December 2022, and it's now mid-24, right? So it's taken a while for it to actually come through legislation, and they've split it since then. So you'll hear it now being referred to as the DBFO, or the Delivering Better Financial Outcomes package, rather than QAR. So QAR is part of that. Somebody just said Darren Borg financial outcomes. But so if you hear about delivering better financial outcomes, it incorporates the QAR. So we've actually received royal assent now for that first tranche that's come through. And that happened on the 9th of July. Some of that was effective immediately. Some of it has a bit more of a lag time before it becomes active. They've also, so back in December last year, the government had announced that the remaining legislation would happen, it would be developed in 2024, and that includes the SOAs. Okay, so that stuff now, so earlier last month, the government announced that the tranche 2 would actually be developed in the second half of this year. That remains to be seen as to how that comes out.
Is FDS in tranche 2?
FDS is in tranche 1, and we'll go through FDS. Okay, so FDS, ongoing consent, is in tranche 1, as is FSGs. Okay, so we'll talk about that. All right, so the thing that's in place right now is FSGs, and you no longer have to actually issue the FSG to a client. You don't have to email it to them. You don't have to issue it in person, but you must have it accessible to the client on your website. So they've specifically stated website. There are some of our smaller groups who don't have websites, so you would continue to issue it as normal. There is no problem still issuing it as normal. What you do still need to be aware of is that the allowance to access FSGs online, rather than being issued to the client, does not remove the requirement to explain to the client what the FSG is, what advice you provide, how they can make complaints, your fee scheduling, all of those sorts of things. You still need to do that, okay, who you are, etc. We do recommend that you include a link to your FSG in your email signatures. Okay, so most of you already have that. Make sure that it is going to your website. So some of them are embedded documents that you have within your systems. Make sure it actually goes to your website rather than your system. The other thing to keep in mind is that you still have to maintain record keeping obligations, which is making sure that you've got a record of when you've updated the FSG on your website. Okay, so not issuing every single document to a client and every single client, but it's keeping a record of when your FSG versions are updated on your website. Okay, so bear that in mind. Make sure you've got something. It can be really simple. Okay, and we can send around a bit of a spreadsheet for that. I'm hoping to incorporate it actually within our SAMI software, but that will come a little bit later. But there are ways and means around that. So that's a really great outcome. That is applicable now. Okay, so you can today not issue any FSGs as long as your most recent FSG is online and available.
That's since 2021.
Sorry?
FSG, still the most recent one, 2021.
I believe so, actually.
I thought that popped up.
Yeah. Look, we don't make many changes in FSGs, and we try to reduce. Maybe in 20, I'll have to check because we did have to put in the not independent. Yeah, so some of them have been updating them as they've had staff changes, etc. Because in our FSG, we've got one document that covers the FSG and the advisor profiles.
Yeah.
There are a number of groups who actually separate the two. So you've got one main FSG that kind of talks about the legalities, etc. And then you've got the advisor profiles, which are separate. They will do the same thing at the end of the day. But I can check with you, Rob, as to what your latest version is. Okay. Now, this is not in order as to how the legislation has stated it, because I just needed to concentrate more on the FDSs, which is a bit more complex. So mine's a bit mixed up. There has been an amendment to the conflicted remuneration. So there is a ban on conflicted rem to explicitly provide that benefits given by a retail client. So if your clients give you something, it's excluded from alt rem. Okay, so in the past there were some questions. I'm not sure if any of you have clients who give you anything that's material.
Fine material.
Cake, maybe. I mean, come on, it really depends on the cake. No, but if they offer you tickets to the football or the tennis or take you out, it's not conflicted remuneration. So there were questions about that previously.
Okay, so tennis is okay.
Tennis is okay. Golf is okay. Yes, any of those sorts of activities. Anything that is given to you by a retail client, okay, in their capacity as a retail client. So if you give advice to somebody who's a fund manager and they give you something from the fund manager, just that's from the fund management, not from the retail client, okay? It also removes exceptions for the issue of financial products where advice has not been provided in the previous 12 months. So again, this is a really weird one where it wasn't considered conflicted remuneration if you actually hadn't given advice at all to anybody regarding that product for the previous 12 months. Yeah, it was a really strange one. Nobody here has been affected by that. But yeah.
So
looks removed. You don't even have to worry about it anymore. Yeah. And that's effective now.
So if you didn't recommend a certain product, you could have...
For a period of 12 months at least, you could have taken conflicted, what would have been considered conflicted rem.
You can't anymore.
No, you can't anymore.
Selling myself out.
Selling yourself out. I'd say maybe applying code of ethics. So there's also removing exceptions to rules for agents or employees of ADIs. So
Going above and beyond that.
Oh, it wasn't the product that I was using. It wasn't like that.
Well, what they were inferring then is that there's no conflict to you recommending that product because there's no advantage to you recommending that product because you're not recommending that product, but it's been removed. So advice fee deductions from super, you would have heard a lot about this. And they really pushed the envelope on this. ASIC, so it was under the legislation where there was funny wording in the legislation that indicated super trustees had to review all advice documents for every client and confirm that the fees being charged were A, in relation to the actual super fund for that client and managing their super fund, and B, that they were reasonable fees. ASIC said that they would release a guidance on that and that their interpretation statement would then, or information memorandum would then apply. But there are a number of people who lobbied that and said, well, that's not enough because if it gets tested in law, the law is that it has to be done. So they've updated the law and that's no longer happening. Okay, so the law, the actual, the wording in the law has changed. And that, that's applicable. And it also amends the mandatory content for ongoing fee consents, which then replaces ASIC's ability to prescribe this content with ministerial ability. You'll see this statement a few times, replaces ASIC's ability to prescribe this content with ministerial ability. And that means that the minister now has say over what happens, not ASIC. Okay, so he has final call on what goes on. This will now apply to all new and new ongoing fee arrangements entered into or after the 10th of January. And there's going to be a bit of a transition period. So this shouldn't affect us as financial planners much, because when we go into fee consent, there's a bit more involved there.
So the trustees still need a fee consent form signed.
The trustees still need a fee consent form signed, yes, which gets us to the exciting part, but complex. And we still don't have all the answers to this. But essentially, with ongoing fee arrangements and fee disclosure statements, so remembering that your ongoing fee arrangements, your client service agreement, and then your ongoing fee consents every year, that was kind of all incorporated with fee disclosure statements as well. Now, they've actually removed from legislation the term fee disclosure statement. So there is no fee disclosure statement as at the 10th of January, 2025. Okay, which is interesting, because that then, it's very complex, so sorry. So with your fee disclosure statement, so from the 10th of January 2025, any new arrangements that you have, any new clients that come in, you don't need to issue FDS, okay? What you then allows you to do with ongoing fee arrangements and consents is that currently with your ongoing fee consents, you can't actually issue, because it's incorporated within your FDS, you can't issue that FDS until after the anniversary date has passed. What now will happen from the 10th of January is you will be able to issue your fee consent to the client 60 days before the anniversary date and up to 60 days after the anniversary date. So you can forward and backdate that within that 120-day period. Okay, so it means that when you're going into client reviews, you can have your fee consent ready to say, as at this date, you can consent to the next ongoing fee.
Product providers actually accept fee consents prior to the anniversary date already, but not the fee disclosure statement.
Yes. So some of them do, some of them don't. I've been notified, but that just gives you some flexibility, in that means that you can have some meaningful conversations with your clients when you're doing their consents. That consent form, again, it needs to have the services that you're going to provide for the next 12 months and the fees that you're going to charge for the next 12 months. There are also a couple of other little things in there that is fairly standard with what you're doing now in those fee consents. The difficulty with that at the moment is that this ministerial power means that the minister can actually say there must be a standardised consent form across the industry. He's not responded to any of that at the moment, so that's not in law, okay? So right now, we're not sure what's going to happen with the actual consent form and whether all product providers have to have the one standardised form, which means that you can get the client to sign it and that's the document that you send off, right? Rather than having to get the providers in individual consent forms, get them signed. And if you've got 2 or 3 products, 2 or 3 consents per client.
So Karen, effectively, a new client comes in the 11th of January 2025 and we do the sign up. They don't need an FDS.
Well, they wouldn't be due for an FDS for 12 months anyway, but no, you don't do an FDS.
For those clients, just the consent form for the provider. So is it easier for us to close the arrangements for existing ones and start into one? Okay.
You can potentially do that. It gets messy though, because if you've already got your clients now, so this, there's so much going on. The term anniversary date is actually being revealed as well. So it will no longer be referred to as an anniversary date because that's incorporated with FDSs. So they're going to introduce some new definitions, and this one is reference date. So you'll talk about your reference date now rather than your anniversary date. I'm sure everybody will still use the term anniversary date. Under the law, it's been repealed, okay, from the 10th of January. Yeah, yes, happy reference day. Lovely. So essentially, yes, you can actually enter into new arrangements with your clients, but then think about when you've got them spread out for reviews, etc. You could potentially still do it as long as it overlaps.
Yeah. So it's sort of just on anniversary dates or reference dates.
Yeah.
In the January, for the rest of the year as they come through, we just restart a new, issue, we've got that, your final FTS, and then issue a new fee agreement.
Well, see, this is the issue that we've got coming out, is that there's no real clarity around how this will actually happen. And ASIC have said that they intend to, by November, give us some more clear guidance on how this actually works in operation.
So we'll know at Christmas time.
Maybe.
No, I was thinking,
Or the day before.
January.
Yeah.
Nick, you charge fixed fees, do you? Yeah. So like for you, it's pretty easy. You can say that as long as the fee changes on the year, you can say, well, the old arrangement's no longer.
Yeah.
This is it. The thing I think that's going to be difficult for clients is that if you charge a fixed fee, they probably want to know what they paid last year anyway. So then they're going to go. Then you're going to probably do the research, or you're going to have to look at say, oh well, what did we receive? Was it all correct? Things like that.
Yeah.
Do you know, Caroline, for the fee consent forms for people that charge a percentage of fees, do they have to give approximations?
They do.
Yeah.
Anytime. So this is not a new thing. This has been around for years and years and years. Anytime you charge on a percentage base for anything, you must give an example. Okay. And as close to the client's reality as possible. Okay. So using today's balance, if I charge, a 1.1%, this equals this amount. Okay. That's been around for a very long time. So you still need to do that if you're doing it on a percentage base. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The tricky part really is what happens, and this hasn't been clarified for me. So if you have somebody whose anniversary date is today, and we issue them with their FDS tomorrow, that's all fine. What happens next anniversary date? Do I actually have to give them, because their next anniversary date, they come under the new arrangements, which means I can issue the fee consent 60 days beforehand. But do I have to issue them an FDS?
Go less than 12 months.
Sorry?
Go less than 12 months.
No, so come their anniversary date, do I need to issue them an FDS next year? And this is what's not been clarified in law, because it speaks about the ongoing fee arrangements, not specifically the FDS. Okay, so this is a space to watch, because with ASIC giving some guidance in hopefully November, that will clear it up a little bit more. The other tricky thing, and I don't want you to dwell on this too much, please, because it is complex and it gets messy. I just think that if they're removing FDS, they do it immediately, and nobody else needs an FDS. If they've already said that it's not worth it.
An extra year, isn't it?
But yeah, potentially. Okay. But the other element is you've got your 120 days to issue an FDS. So what happens if the client is due for their FDS in November, but if we take out the 120 days, it goes past the 10th of January. Does that mean that they're now in the new regime and therefore the FDS doesn't need to be issued? So there's all these questions about how this actually works in practice that haven't been answered yet. Okay, so I've heard two differing elements of, yes, you have to issue the FDS, and oh no, because if you push it over your 120 days, technically it's in the new regime and you don't have to issue.
But you had an obligation.
Yeah.
And you've got a concession.
Is it making a offence if you classify as very minor breach, or what's that?
Look, I'm not willing to play in that space until we get some clarity from ASIC. But just being aware that this is likely there will be some iterations on this as to how it actually works in practice.
To justify the existence of that.
It's really difficult. And the thing is, with these consent forms, the minister has been very, very quiet on the standardised form, hasn't given any indication either way, which has been frustrating.
Does the minister understand the ramifications? What
No.
they've been asked to get?
No.
Just interesting shit.
I don't believe so. Maybe he does, and it's not not keep high on his priority list.
It'll be interesting though, because like every single product provider can charge completely differently. Like some will be able to have percentages and fixed fees and have different periods and things like that, whereas some may not have that flexibility. So like you're going to have fee consent forms that have, if it's standardised, like all this information on it, it might not even be relevant to that product. And
No, they'll strip it out so that it's very standardised content, right? So the issue with the consent forms that we've been doing historically is that a lot of the product providers then became nervous about, oh, hang on, we've got to make sure that we cover our liability as well and make sure all of our legalese is in those documents. What the proposal for a standardised form is, it strips all of that out.
yeah, but even like what I was trying to say is like the types of fees that can be deducted and also like the frequency of the fees and things like that. So those layers may be a standard form, like as
There's a bit of word format, all the ASIC templates work. So it'll be
Yeah, well, it's not even Word.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dumped into there.
it'll be like insert your fees in this box.
Yeah.
It won't be like filling out a manual, like a form that says.
Well, we'll wait and see, because if it's something that has to be standardised, if it becomes standardised, okay, we're talking in possibilities here. If it does become standardised, then I assume that they'll do something a little more than that. I assume.
It's still all of the services, that's what the fund managers worry about.
Yeah.
The fees, like charging out super for service provided, related to,
Well, yeah.
that's the biggest.
So
You're gonna get grief on.
even though previously we talked about the advice fee deductions from super and clarity on that, there are some trustees who are asking for SOAs to check those, right, and check that those fees are actually in relation to that client's super fund. So if you do have anybody asking for that, please let us know. It'd be good to understand how
isn't that
prevalent
under
that is.
review as well though? Like to extend what you can deduct from super for fees? Or was that more just for the industry funds?
It might be more for the industry funds.
That's what
The fund items make a decision based upon their own personal circumstances. So the client might be satisfied to have it come out of the super. That might be the only way they can afford to receive advice.
It's interesting because the default, you're right, Rob, but the default position by ASIC, by AFCA, is that the clients actually don't understand anything. That's their default position. Sorry?
Like if you're charging out a super and then you give them personal cash flow advice, doesn't mean it's all free.
It doesn't mean it doesn't affect it in a roundabout way, yeah?
Yeah, like you can think of like, that's just one example, but if you're talking about their home loan
Yeah,
and charging advice for like, so I mean,
from their super,
like,
yeah,
or you're giving them business advice or like.
Yeah.
Doesn't relate.
yeah. So if you do have anybody asking about providing SOAs, please let us know. So FDS is, again, just a space to watch. It actually doesn't come into effect until the 10th of January. Again, I don't know why, if they've decided that it's not, they've recognised that it's probably a waste of resources, but watch this space, okay? Consent for insurance commissions. So this is an interesting one. It will apply to benefits given in relation to the sale or issue of risk insurance products after the 9th of July 2025. Okay, so they all have different kind of transition date or start dates. This one talks about actually requiring the clients to consent to you receiving insurance commissions. Now, this is to be a one-off kind of scenario where the clients, and it could be incorporated within the authority to proceed. It could be a separate form. Again, the minister will have some say on this, but the position is that it will be a once-off requirement, and the clients, and this is the interesting one, is that once a client signs this consent, they can never revoke that consent.
But when you get quotes from insurance companies, the quote does also include the commission payable on the insurance. So if the client signs that quote, isn't that?
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Yes, but it needs to be a bit more explicit and it needs, again, so we're kind of going into,
No.
I get it. But it will have to incorporate these kind of statements about, the client can never remove their consent. They can never revoke their consent to you receiving ongoing commissions.
It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be really interesting, isn't it?
So client please you goes to your advisor.
No, so that's an exemption. Okay, so that's the one exemption. Is where the licensee or representative actually purchases a client book, the consent comes across to them.
But this is for after the month.
This is for after the 9th of July next year.
So it's purchased an advice business.
Yeah.
So the client leaves with their own accord and swaps advisors. Where's that?
Well, I haven't specifically and explicitly written that, but it can, yes. All of this information, so we've got that from the ASIC's website, so you can have a look at that if you really want to. It's very riveting stuff. It's very complex at the moment, particularly with FDS, okay? But upshot is we've had a win with FSGs. We've had somewhat of a win with FDSs once that actually takes effect, and some clarity around some of these other things. With the insurance commissions, it's another step that has to be done. How that will actually come out in the wash, we're just not sure. Another fun topic, compensation scheme of last resort. So apologies, we have had to send out your invoices, well, your fees for the levy for the compensation scheme of last resort. Now, the compensation scheme of last resort actually applies to whoever was on the register under the license on the 30th of June, the previous year, not the previous financial year, but the previous, the previous.
So do you reckon that's why so many sacked themselves before the end of June last year? There was such a huge uplift in resignations, and then all of a sudden, after the 1st of July, we've had a lot of people jump back on it.
Potentially, or so I'm guilty of that, Rob. I took myself off the register because I don't actually give financial advice to clients, to retail clients or wholesale clients. But the amount of fees and levies that are now being pushed onto financial advisors doesn't make sense for somebody who doesn't actively give advice to be on the register. And I think a lot of people were captured in that, where they were like, oh, I actually don't give advice. I'm on the register just for being on the register's sake. And that was fine previously. And particularly, so there was a huge uptake just before December 2018 when they said you must be on the register to then not have to do a professional year and to come under the realm of being a relevant provider. But yeah, there'll be differing reasons why. That was the reason why I took myself off the register.
So will this be going for like 4 or 5 years, or is it going to be ongoing?
This is ongoing. This is ongoing. There is a lot, if you read the articles going around, FAAA are really jumping up and down about this one, particularly with Dixon.
So it's unconstitutional.
They have. They've actually, what do they call it, Darren?
Robbery.
Well, robbery is, yeah, it's probably one of those terms.
Yeah.
But there's actually been
Well, everyone's complaining like, where are those massive fines to the banks and everything like that going?
well, this is the other element, right? So yes, the banks, but ASIC were grilled over their dealings with Dixon, and they continued to take legal action against Dixon, recognising that Dixon would never pay. So they've then just chopped up the hours and the costs that we then have to pay. So there are a number of questions that are being posed to ASIC about their dealing with this. There were a number of questions posed to AFCA about their dealings with this, because the law actually states that AFCA approves who is a part of the compensation scheme of last resort. Because remember, it's the cases that have gone through AFCA that have been found in favour of the clients, so the clients have a compensation awarded to them. But that financial firm is no longer in operation, so there's nobody left to pay, right? So it's those funds that we cover in the compensation scheme of last resort. I think it's up to a maximum of 150,000 per person.
It's fluctuating.
Well, it depends on the situation though, right? So if you had a client, Dixon is a really, so the advice given under Dixon, they've got the integrated, the vertically integrated products, right? So those products have failed. These clients had all willingly gone into those. That aside, if it was bad advice, it was bad advice. Yet all of those clients, they've said something like 3,900 of them out of the 4,300, 4,100 have actually are now clients of Evans and Partners, which is the parent company of
Doing
Dixon.
clients of what?
Evans and Partners.
Took over Dixon's.
So why not?
They're the parent, no, they didn't take them over. They're the parent company of Dixon. And so this is the other issue that's come up is why has it, so it's not the compensation scheme of last resort, it's compensation scheme of easiest resort. Right, so.
Why aren't they responsible? Like if they've delegated the authority, why aren't they responsible?
Yeah, none of the advisors have been taken to account, none of the directors.
The skeptic in me says, well, who were the bulk of Dixon's clients? Public servants.
A lot of Dixon clients came out of Canberra.
And who makes the legislation?
Yeah, so the main thing about the Dixon stuff is that it was the Dixon failed 2 years before this legislation even took effect, and that's the problem, right? So they've retrospectively
What about touch?
applied it.
You lost your money, bad luck, join the queue. Happened to everybody else. You made the decision, live with it.
So with the levies, I did send it in the email, but just so that you're aware, there are heavy penalties for late payments. It's 20% per annum charged monthly until it's paid. Now, a number of people had said, you know, we should take a stance as an industry and just not pay it. ASIC have preempted that and they put on our invoice.
We'll be a laughing stock around the world because we'll be the only pack of morons that'll put something like this into place where innocent parties pay for the actions of other people.
Well, this is the thing, innocent parties paying for the actions of others, and those others have had no consequences. No consequences.
So Caroline, where have those advisors gone that were, I mean, this is huge.
Yeah, where have they gone? They're now under Evans and Partners.
Why haven't they been struck off the register, never to be able to give advice?
They've not been investigated. There've not been any
But that
consequences.
is ludicrous.
Yeah, the millions of dollars that ASIC have charged them and fined them, they've already said we don't expect it to be paid.
I think they have to like their internal managed accounts and things like that.
That is also, I don't even think that they did blow up with that. They were just charging like exorbitant fees.
Not sure what it was. I will have to have a look into it a little bit more.
You've been listening straight off the register.
Yeah, like we were presented to one once. It's like a New York property fund.
Yeah.
And we were looking at it and the numbers didn't really add up to performance and the video was like, oh, it's the currency in this period. And then it came out, they were charging like their management fee, but then like the rental management fees, and like so there's all these fees up fees. So that it didn't blow up. It just there was all these fees the clients were incurred that weren't disclosed. So I think then they got fined for that and that dissolved the business. I don't think the product's actually I don't think it was like a bond fund that blew up or something.
Right, okay. Yeah.
And the
I
other
understand it, I could be wrong.
A lot of them as well, like they run those MDAs, then they go, okay, well, we're going to charge you an advice fee. Then your MDA's got like the products that are underneath, like managed funds and everything like that. Then they're going to charge an investment fee on that because they're running that product. And then there's like, so by the end of the time, like they're taking the equivalent, like,
And I think we might have then
4%
complained for recourse on that, and there was no funds to pay that, and that's where they're lost.
Right.
There was apparently
I think,
70% of the clients were invested in that US property.
that was the big one,
That was the biggest issue. It's related party. You've got 70%.
I don't think it blew up, I think.
It didn't blow up, but yeah, you're right. The margins are so, but 70% of your clients are there. That's a problem.
Well, the other issue that comes out of this is that there are numerous reports to ASIC again about the activity of Dixon, and they did nothing for a long time.
You could take $10,000 out of one client's account and be for all that kind of $10,000, and you would lose your license, be struck off the register, never to be able to have a financial planning business again. Yet these people have done something 100 times worse and they walk away.
And that's another argument that's come out is, you know, the code of ethics is in place, right? So how are none of these advisors being held to account for not operating in the best interest of the client?
And we end up paying for it.
We end up paying for this. This fee will happen every year. It is separate to the ASIC industry funding levy. Okay, they are two separate fees. This one happens now in August to be paid by September. The industry funding levy is in February to be paid in March.
All we're doing is fund more.
We are funding more and more. We're funding, so the ASIC industry funding levy, please don't shoot me. It is for ASIC's activity to bring to account these people who do the wrong thing. It's their regulatory costs, you know, their legal costs, all of that sort of stuff. So we're paying for ASIC's fee.
There are toothless tiger.
No wonder PI costs come there.
Oh,
Well, you got to pay for it anyway.
Some legal costs are recommended.
Yeah,
And you pay.
yeah, I saw this as well. Yes. So we will do something along those lines. We're saying that we're doing this under protest, because, so as I said, I was starting to say before, ASIC have explicitly listed on the invoice now that if you do not pay within 12 months, they can revoke your license and take your business. They'll wind up the business.
Do businesses get a chance to pay it monthly or something? It's a big chunk out of revenue.
No, 18th of September, anything after that date incurs a late penalty fee of 20% per annum, charged monthly. So we've been able to get it over 3 pay runs for everybody. For us, we may not always be able to do that depending on the timing of when we get invoices, etc. Next year is expected to be a lot higher than this year.
There should be a royal commission into ASIC.
This is another thing that people are lobbying for, that there needs to be an investigation. AFCA aren't answering why they're allowing Dixon. ASIC are not answering questions about why they're doing what they're doing. Interestingly, I don't have a lot of love for the IFP. However, ASIC had, so I'm not sure if you know, so one of the industry bodies is the Association of Independently Owned Financial Planners, so headed up by Peter Johnson. They can be quite controversial at the best of times, but ASIC have actually released a media release to put them on notice that they will not respond to the AIOFP unless it's in writing, because they believe that they have been underhanded and dishonest, etc., in their dealings. We're trying to call out ASIC on what's happening with them.
There is actually a review into this going on.
Yeah.
There's a potential restructure of them, which can be
Again,
dangerous.
unfortunately, we're the ones left here standing here to pay, and that's a real problem.
Less than what we initially thought. Yeah.
For this year, okay, please don't be scared about it this year it's $1,200 or just over. Next year we don't know what that will be.
Oh, they'll find some way to justify that it should be $5,000. So
they're saying, so my apologies, I did release an email last time, and thank you for Rob following up with Phil Anderson. So Phil Anderson now heads up FAAA, or one of the ones heading up FAAA. He's now, I don't know if anybody's heard, he's now come out that he's angry Anderson, and he's the one, he's really pursuing ASIC on this.
Good on him.
Right, so
It's really good to talk to, actually. I was quite surprised.
yeah,
I thought he'd be very, just standoffish and might want to push it aside, but no, I've probably spoken for over 20 minutes.
yeah, great,
And he was a really, really good person to talk to, and he
Great.
sounded very supportive.
great. Yeah, that's really important. So I also see that a number of people are dropping their memberships of FAAA, again, because it's another cost, right? On top of all of this, so I don't know, again, what's going to happen in that if we don't have industry representation because people can't afford to pay for it. It's just one thing after another. So the next thing is that ASIC have now, they've actually conducted a bit of an audit on your financial advisor register. This is not information that you input, so I don't want you to be worried about that, but there may be some action that I ask you to do. What they've discovered is that in inputting, the licensees inputting the information into the financial advisor register, we went through this a few years ago. We had to make sure that everybody's degrees were on there, that all of their education was on there. There were drop-down options to choose, you know, is it an approved degree? Is it a bridging course? Is it an industry certification, etc.? What they've discovered, or ASIC's discovered, is that that's not terribly accurate. Now, I would just like to say that the information that we had at the time was not very accurate. So I know a couple of people in the room here, we had to go backwards and forwards because their degrees weren't approved degrees, but they'd only done them a few years previously, and some of the required courses were actually electives, not required subjects. So there was a lot of backwards and forwards, and that register changed. The approved courses changed a lot over that time. What we will be doing is we will be doing an audit ourselves and making sure that that's all correct. If you have done any certificates in the past few years, make sure that you send me a copy. You have to send me a certified copy. This is another issue that's come out. There have been a few people who have been banned because they've been faking some certificates. There are a number of people who faked the passing of the financial advisor exam. The face your exam, yeah. Well, they didn't pass, so then they just got a copy of one that had just edited it and said I passed. There is no register for us to check. So this is the thing, there is no register for me to go on and say, did she pass the exam?
Financial planning degree issued by the university.
All I can rely on is the information that you guys give me. I've just got morning tea coming in. Yeah, this here is fine.
Is there? That's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I think I've got a list.
Coffees, yeah.
Any kind of almond latte. So what I will come back to you on is just check that the information that I have in the register is correct and that I have a copy of everything for you. So that's the only thing that I need you to do is go, yes, you've got everything, or hang on, there's something else. Anytime I make a change to this, so please make sure that it's accurate. They charge us something like $30 every time I make a change on every single one. Wow. Okay, so please, let's try to just make sure that it's correct. So again, it's not something that you've done. This comes from us, and we'll make sure that that's all accurate for you. So I want to talk about something a little more exciting than all of that stuff, and it's the implementation of a new auditing system for us. So in the past, as you know, we've done it very manually, which has driven me mad, beyond mad. But we've been able to implement this new system. It's called Advice RegTech SAMI. So it is what it says, it's RegTech. It actually has machine learning behind it. So we've been spending the past few weeks working with the team at SAMI to get, so we've loaded on lots of examples, previous audits, etc., and they've been able to map to the checklists. So that means that the system now is online for auditing. It means that there's a rating system behind it as well. I don't know if that scares people or if it excites people. I've had a number of advisors say, how do I perform against everybody else? In the past, we haven't rated. Who's that? Who says that? How do I perform? What am I doing? How's everybody else doing? Am I good? Am I bad? Those sorts of things. This makes it really visible. Okay. I'm actually really excited. I'm sorry. I am really excited for this one. One of the things that did come out of it, though, is it gave me a lot of comfort. Our checklists, we compared to the checklists that they have embedded in their system, and they're very similar. So our checklists delve a little bit more into some of the finer detail about things like SMSF, margin lending if you have it wholesale clients. So we've been able to get them to embed some of our extra things in there. But that gave me a lot of comfort that we're looking for the things that is industry standard, right? So we're not missing chunks of work. That should give you some comfort too, I hope. The system, we will have you uploading documents into this system for that client file. What it then does is it recognises those documents. And so rather than, I still have to go through them. Please don't think for a second that it's just all machine. CJ and I actually do have to read through the documents to make sure that they're correct. But what it removes is me having to flick backwards and forwards between 70 different documents going, I think I saw something somewhere that said something about this topic. Okay, what it does is all of those documents that get uploaded, it then tags it to different sections within our checklist. I can click on that section and it'll take me to a document where something about that has been mentioned, right? And then I can read through it and go, yes, it satisfies the requirements, or no, it doesn't, or it does partially, and these are the reasons. We can then add your action items. When you see it, you will see your action items. You'll also see your scoring, and you'll be able to see the actual checklists themselves and where those things have been identified. Sounds complex. We are still trying to work through how this works. And we're doing some dummy testing on Matt, and he's very happy about it. The other thing that it also brings into the scope for us is our complaints, our incident management, and some more reporting for us from a licensee perspective. So your alternative remuneration register, your conflicts of interest register, it will be all housed within this system that you can easily access and view. It makes our lives a lot easier. It'll make your life a lot easier. After we've had a few, sorry, just ignoring that for just a second. After we've had a few months, so they're thinking 6 to 12 months of data and audits coming through, we'll then be able to do the benchmarking. And just within the group at this point in time, they're looking at whether they could make that across their whole usage or user base. But really exciting that we can do that in the first place. This is just some information about it. I'm not going to jump in it too much, but you will actually, your screen, you will see this on your screen. You'll get emails to say something's happened, you need to action something. When you click on it, you'll come into, and this will be, this dark section will be part of your screen. It talks about how it makes things a lot easier for people, for us. Just that more efficient monitoring and supervision and evidence. So again, if the document doesn't exist, if you've done it but the document doesn't exist, ASIC think it doesn't exist. It never happened if there's no evidence, okay? So we've talked about this a lot in the past to make sure that you've got evidence of everything that you're doing. So it does a scoring base, and that's all been done by actuarials about the scoring mechanism, etc. It's not something that we as a license control. If there was something specific, we could ask them to look at that, but it's not something that we control. You'll see the little Sammy bot come up a lot in your when you're logged in. This is what your screen will look like. Okay, this one here. Let me see if I can highlight. That's not going to work for me. That one there. Initially, so these are all of your documents. So this paraplanning work order. This is part of your documents that gets loaded in. Okay.
So is there an estimation as to, like, if you, I think from memory, you normally order about 4 or 5 files. Is there an estimation as to how long it will take to upload everything that's required for those 4 or 5 files?
We will work with you on this. So we will work on you. If we can get access to the files, we'll do it. Yeah. If it's that you've got something somewhere else that it gets a bit trickier, then you can upload it, but we will take the bulk of uploading. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I may ask you to upload some things, but we'll take the bulk of that. Yeah. As long as we have access to those files, that's the key. There is integration with Xplan, however, that's very costly. It's not something that we're looking at this point in time. Surprise, surprise, I know, right? Surprise. This other screen on the right-hand side, I was trying to see the people online. This is the one that you will see most of, okay? So this one will actually show you the file reviews, and if there are any action items for you, it will come up, okay? So they're actually really receptive to feedback, the SAMI team. We were going through this with Matt the other week, and he suggested to them that this actually be like on a traffic light system. So anything that's major comes up in red, anything that's a minor issue comes up in yellow. And then once it's done, it goes green. So they're very receptive to feedback. They liked that one. This is your item, and then it comes down the bottom in terms of actions to do. So this one, it's just got a comment, ensure objectives are smart, okay? And then it tells you which file that's in relation to. When you have done the action and you tick the box, it'll then come backwards and forwards between you and us. So it shows you cases again. So this one here, expand your file note, and that's in relation to this Peter and Jane Jones. You will then see after this action to do items, underneath there's the question sets, and it will be in order of the files that we've audited. If you click on issues, comments, and actions only, it will only bring up the exceptions. Okay, if you wanted to see everything, you could still see everything. On the right-hand side here, it will have what we've marked it as, you know, partial completion, yes, no, it will show you there. This is all overwhelming right now, I know. But the great thing with the SAMI team is that they will be doing individual training with us as we bring everybody on board with their audits. We're also going to hold a webinar with them on the 10th of September, and I'll send around some invites to that. And they will show you more about the system and how that's going to work for all of us. It means that your audits are really accessible. If you wanted to go into them at any time, you can print off the report. You've got your scoring system, so your result, and then you can see why you've got that result as well. I'm very excited about that. It tells you then all your workflow stages and who's got what, whose responsibility it is. Okay, so as I said, we'll do more individual and personalised training with you as you come through your audits. It's very exciting. Alpha Conference. There are a number of us going, so we've got some great representation, and it helps that it's local. It's actually the 24th conference, Darren, of the Alpha Group, and the only one that's been held in Victoria to date. For those of you who don't know, most of you in the room do, we've got some new advisors, some of them don't. Every year we have the Coxie Award at the Alpha Group. This is a really, it's really close award for Darren. Darren was close friends with Neil Cox. He was one of the founding people of the Alpha Group. Okay, so he passed away in 2017, and to honour him, we do this Coxie Award every year. Nominate people, please. Yeah, so anybody within the group can nominate somebody else. You cannot nominate yourself. We're not that kind of an award. There are different, you can nominate in any of these areas, okay? In the past, we've kind of we've focused on one particular area. We've opened it up this year. It's across those areas of community, membership, mentorship, or innovation. If you want to nominate somebody, please do. You do need to email Simone, and her email address is on one of these slides, and just go through these items. So what have they done, how they've excelled in a specific category, and why the Coxie should go to the nominee. Some more about those different areas and what they mean. And now it says to be received by today. yesterday, for the nominations to Simone. That can be pushed up for a little bit, but please nominate somebody. In the past few years, we've struggled with people nominating anybody. So please, I think did see it somewhere, Darren.
Tony Smith sent a message through to say, that it did close yesterday. So we're too late if you haven't nominated.
Did it really? Did we just get that email?
That's what Tony's saying now. Sorry, that
Tony.
it closed yesterday.
I did circulate the email. I just wanted to make sure that people understood the importance of this, and that this is really prestigious. This is a great award to receive. No, for next year. Okay, nominate people. Really, really great. That's me done. If you've got questions, please shoot them through and I can follow those up for you. We've actually got evaluations. I'm trying to do this a little bit more efficiently and effectively. If you can scan, for those who can't scan, I will send through a link on Monday, but we're trying to, whilst the session is fresh in your mind, if you can go through and complete that, that would be great. We're going to do this for each of the sessions today. Lovely. We're going to break now for morning tea. So I'm allowing a little bit more time with these morning teas to allow a bit more networking opportunities, rather than very quick 15 minutes. That for those who are online, come back too. Maybe those who are on site don't always come back so quickly. So we will see you back here at 11 a.m. Thanks, guys.
I feel like we should clap.
You don't need to clap at all. Golf club.
Well done, Carol.
Where is my...
Considering I am the most dry topic in the world.
We get an hour of things for that one, Carolyn.
Yeah, definitely a whole hour.
Okay.
Bathroom. It's down that way.
I'll pass it on.
Oh, thank you.
Come around.
Caroline.
Thank you.